Let's now welcome political analyst Dr. Imraan Buccus. Dr. Buccus, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to SA Today.
Thanks, Sipiwe. Thanks for having me.
First of all, Dr. Buccus, what do you think are the main factors that led to the disbandment of the ANC's PECs in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng? They call it the reconfiguration, but how does such reconfiguration of these PECs reflect the current state of internal party dynamics within the party?
Well, one is I think this may have been a really difficult decision. I would think that the balance of forces in the NEC might have been split, and perhaps a minority may have wanted a complete disbandment, and part or a significant part of the NEC might have wanted what they're calling a reconfiguration. And I think the statement that comes out of the NEC is pretty clear. It foregrounds the idea of unity of the ANC, and I think that perhaps is particularly important, bearing in mind how fragmented the ANC has been in its recent history. So I think why a reconfiguration? One is you have an upcoming local government election. I don't think you want to upset the sort of leadership you have in the province at the moment, and that might impact on the electorate or mobilizing for that election as you get closer. I think the other dynamic is, there are dynamics of leadership. You might have MECs that are part of the PEC, and those sorts of dynamics might also impact on how you think about this reconfiguring. And I also think, the problem might not just be at provincial leadership. One also needs to think about the regional structures. And we know that in Gauteng and especially in KZN, there have also been problems at regional level. So I think in that context, the idea of reconfiguration as opposed to disbanding may have made sense.
And what does such reconfiguration say about the level of factionalism within the ANC, particularly in these two important provinces?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are key provinces for the ANC. In many ways, KwaZulu-Natal had, in years gone by, been the epicenter of the ANC. But I think absolutely, the way in which the current leadership in the province, and I'm talking here of KZN, might have neglected to engage with the nuance of having someone like Jacob Zuma as a key political figure in KZN may have been impactful. I think this idea that you needed to have taken action is a critical one, but I also think this might be too little, too late. In a province like KZN, from the time of Mayor Gauteng, the writing has been on the wall. Incompetence, corruption, a lack of service delivery across class lines, across the various areas of the respective provinces. And I think when this happens, then clearly the election becomes completely disillusioned. And I think having a figure of 17% and 35% in Gauteng is a clear reflection of how disillusioned the electorate has been.
And how do you view the ANC's ability to balance, I would say, unity and diversity of opinions within its leadership, especially with the reconfiguration of provincial structures? Is the party effectively addressing its internal divisions, or do you think this reconfiguration signals deeper issues within the party?
Well, yeah, the ANC has always been characterized by this idea of a broad church. But I think this idea of a broad church ideologically may have been easier to manage prior to 94. I think in a post-94 context, there's a whole range of reasons why, the idea of plurality and perhaps even ideological plurality. We talk of a left in the ANC, we talk of social democrats, we talk of, if you like, corrupt nationalists. So there's a whole plurality even ideologically, and that becomes really difficult to manage. We've seen that that's reflected at provincial leadership level. This inability to deal with complex political situations, this inability to take into account nuance and history and various dynamics of diversity that impact, this very rich non-racial history of the ANC. So I think what can happen in terms of how the provincial structures are reconfigured, it might help to bring in old experienced members of the ANC. And I'm thinking here in the context of KZN, former Premier, someone like Ndebele, might be a useful figure to bring into the leadership. And of course, there are many other figures to help the province rethink how it approaches leadership. And I think especially important how it approaches leadership as we approach 2026.
Dr. Buccus, no doubt whatever happens at the subordinate levels of leadership of the party is a stark reflection of the leadership or the political mettle of national leadership. So what do you think then the national leadership of the ANC aims to achieve by reconfiguring the PECs of these provinces, and what might be the broader implications for the party strategy?
Again, I think there certainly is a need to reconfigure, there is a need to rethink. But I think the destruction and the fragmentation in the ANC has been so deep, and the ANC has become so fractured that, history teaches us that when particularly liberation movements that remain in power, this long, 3 decades into power, when they start to disintegrate and when they start to fragment and get pushed to the periphery, rebuilding becomes really, really difficult. And I think it might be even more ominous that the idea that a former liberation movement in power pushed to the periphery can regain political power, I think is extremely unlikely. If one thinks from Ghana to Kenya to Zambia, to various other countries. We might think of the chaos closer home in Mozambique, where one may argue, well, here you have a liberation movement in power for close to 5 decades. But we all know that, Frelimo remaining in power, well, however the configuration emerges with Podemos in the days to come, we know that there are huge questions about whether a liberation movement like Frelimo really does win that election. So all in all, I'm saying that once, liberation movements begin their downward slide, rebuilding becomes really, really difficult, perhaps even impossible.
All right, Dr. Buccus, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for sharing your analysis and insights with us.